Seventh Guess was great. All the Blackwell games are great. I think we've only done Blackwell Legacy. Um, we played through and beat Blade Runner. That was awesome. Um, for as much grief as people love to give Cyberpunk, if you're someone like me that didn't really read that much about it, I osmosised some of the hype. I thought Cyberpunk was great. I described it as a really solid but non-inventive RPG, and it was great. It's terrific. Dagger of Amun-Ra was a fun one. Never played this one, but I claimed it. Eric the Unready was like absolute trash. Like one of the like this is like a game that even if you played it on the day it came out, you'd be like, this doesn't fucking hold up, and it's a day old, right? These are two of my favorite games of all time. Fallout 1 in particular is one of my most played games of all time. Full Throttle, the remaster was great. Oh, dude, can we just take a moment to give a shout out to fucking Thronebreaker? I think it might be down here somewhere. Yeah, Thronebreaker was fucking awesome, dude. It was fucking amazing. An amazing game. Nikitsu says nice amount of games owned. I've been on GOG since like shortly after it came into existence because I look up a lot of old game shit. Look up a lot of old game stuff. Stofu says, I must announce this to the world. After 75 hours of playing Project Zomboid, I just found my first How to Use Generators book. I am overjoyed. Jam10 says, have you and the Mostly Walking crew considered playing the Forgotten City at some point? Yes. So we have, like, there's Norco, Forgotten City. There is Bad Mojo. I have this list somewhere. I'm trying to remember. Titanic, Star Trek, 25th anniversary edition. Neverhood is not on anything. But yeah, I love GOG because it just has like a lot of games I played as a kid. Never played I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Do you guys know this story? Do you know this shit? You guys know the story of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream? It's one of the more famous sci-fi short stories, and it's super fucked up. You can get it. It's like it's 13-page PDF. It's about how there starts to become three mega states. I think it's like America, Russia, and China. And they build these supercomputers that start covering up huge portions of the planet to be able to overcome and defeat each other. But one of the computers becomes self-aware, absorbs all the other computers, and the computer just hates. That's what it does. It's unbelievably hateful. It hates that humans invented it. It hates that it has all this power, but it can't be anything or do anything because it just literally has covered the entire world. And so it has killed all of humanity except for 5 humans that it torches. That's it. It's just torturing these people. So it's the story of these 5 people getting endlessly tortured for hundreds of years. 109 years. And how they're coping with it and how they try to deal with it. I'm just going to spoil the whole thing for you because, again, it's 13 pages. So the narrator, Ted, realizes that this computer has... the computer can basically effectively keep them pseudo-immortal and, like, deform their bodies and brains and stuff like this. But Ted realizes that the only way out is by killing everyone. So he kills his other 4 friends, saving them. This enrages the computer, because the computer is not a god. It can't bring them back from the dead. It can keep them pseudo-immortal and keep them alive, but once they're gone, they're gone. So the computer's furious. So what it does is it deforms the body of the final person, Ted, into a soft, squishy, slug-like being with no appendages. So that it can just, all it can do is slide really slowly and feel pain. And so Ted has to remember that he saved these people to escape them, or to get them to escape from this hellish reality. But in the end, the computer, to ensure that he will live endlessly and be able to be tortured endlessly, turns him into something that can no longer harm itself. And so the last line is, "I have no mouth and I must scream." And they actually turned it into a graphic adventure game. Turned it into this graphic adventure game where it's a point-and-click adventure game. And the Allied master computer, who's the villain, is voiced by Harlan Ellison. Yeah, I mean, like when you read the story, like every paragraph, you're just like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" And you like read the next paragraph, and you're like, "Holy fucking shit!" And then you like read it, and you're like, "Jesus!" And then you look, and you're on page 2, and you're like, "Fuck!" And you keep going. It's like so great. And the game apparently explores visuals and ideas that Harlan Ellison was unable to include in this short story. It was really, really interesting because during the early emergence of games, it was kind of a new technology that was very young. It was very sort of interesting and fresh. And as is the case with all new tech, a lot of existing industries and people would kind of like dip in, just kind of like dip into it, you know. So, you know, during this era where graphic adventure games were really popular, you had like Steven Spielberg was a writer or maybe even the director of The Dig, a graphic adventure game that's kind of mediocre. Uh, Harlan Ellison, famous author, helped with some of the creation of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. So there's actually a really lot of interesting stories and connections of popular figures in like really early games. What else is here? The King's Quest games. These were famous. Before there was annualized Call of Duties, there were annualized King's Quest games. So, Roberta Williams, one of just like the greatest game developers of all time. And Roberta Williams is fucking the GOAT, man. She's like such a fucking badass. She just got really into some of the early text-only adventure games. And the text-only adventure games were those ones like Zork, where it's like you're standing in front of a White House. To the west, there is dark woods, and to the east of the mountains. And you would say, like, go north. You're inside of the White House right now, and blah, 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 blah. And she would draw out on a map, on a grid. It was really common to, frankly, MS Paint your way through this shit. It was, frankly, really, really common to be like, okay, so we're standing here. So the house is here, and then here's where the woods are. Here's the woods entrance, and then here's the dark woods here, and over here there's a creek. You know, like I used to draw diagrams like this as a kid when I was playing these text-only games. And so Roberta Williams loved these early games. Lots of people did. Super popular. Back when a lot of early computers existed only at universities. So you'd be a student and you'd like go to the fucking mainframe room. That's like what my mother did when she would play Colossal Cave Adventure, or Adventure as it soon became known. Roberta Williams started to be one of the first people to ever actually use graphics when making games. Because back during the early era of computing, computers were used in businesses. They were these unbelievably unwieldy needs to take up an entire room and be refrigerated kind of thing. The idea of a personal computer was initially advertised as, hey, you're a businessman who wants to be able to get stuff done at home. Here you can bring your business-focused computing device at home, your personal computer, and do stuff. But games started to become a really big selling point for the hardware. So, of course, if you're a hardware developer, if you're making these computers, you're just going to be like, yo, dude, look at all these cool games. You should get it. It's good for business, but your fucking kids will love it, etc. So, Roberta Williams developed this game called King's Quest that, like, I mean, frankly, you look at this and you're like, oh yeah, these graphics are fucking trash, right? Like fucking super pixel things. But imagine going from text to this where you actually can move around. Like, you can click up and down here, or like if you're in this area, you can move. I don't know what that fucking car's doing there. That's not part of the game. What the fuck? Yeah, you actually can move all the way around in this. It's crazy. And also, when we think of modern games, we think of very limited inputs. We think of things like you have the A button for jumping and the forward button for movement. Back in this era, you just typed what you wanted to do. So you'd type climb tree, or you'd type, like punch tree. And so you'd have these like really weird niche fulfillment of players doing shit. So you'd be like bite tree. And it would be like you try to sink your teeth into the bark, but wind up damaging your teeth in the process. So there'd be like tens of thousands of custom little bizarre things as you were typing in these requests. And there were some pattern things, like use this on that, like use key on door. But they would also try to account for you just typing in, unlock the door with the key, and try to figure that shit out. It was incredible. It was really incredible. So when King's Quest came out, it blew up, man. It fucking blew up. And games, there was no sense of how long it took to make a game back then. So they just pounded these games out one after the other every single year. Because this King's Quest, I think was 80... I can just fucking look it up. I know King's Quest 7 was like 94, I want to say. King's Quest, Wikipedia. Yeah, so this was... Let's see. These are like fucking ancient games right here. So this, where's the King's Quest game? It says 84, 85, 86, 88, 90, 92, and 94. So it was like nearly one a year. It was like 1 a year, 1 a year, 1 year, then 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. I mean, they like pounded these fucking games out, dude. Like they made these fucking games. And the funny thing is, they were releasing them at a steady clip, and the King's Quest games are sort of your traditional fairy tale like fantasy. But they started to create different versions of this kind of idea with Police Quest, and Police Quest 2 and 3 and 4, and Police Quest SWAT, and then Space Quest, and Space Quest 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. I mean, these things were just getting fucking pounded out, man. And it was this huge rush to produce games as fast as possible. And that's really what the graphic adventure games represent, is the first instance of the proverbial gold rush for we need to be the first to release games for fucking computers. Let's do this shit. Because, I mean, like, Nintendo and Super Nintendo, yeah, these are the 90s. But this gold rush is happening starting in the mid and late 80s and the early 90s. So it's just kind of amazing how there's a lot of really high quality, defining, seminal works at the time, and fucking garbage. Like real garbage. Like, dude, where's Eric the Unready? Like this game is fucking insane. Okay, so let's tell a story. By the way, Waffles the dog, good to see you. I don't know if you're back in the Oakland area or you're still way out west/east, depending upon your measurement. But Waffles the dog, good to see you. What a good dog. So, okay, so I want you to envision, right? Like, a lot of these early games during this period of time. Hi, kitten. Hi. Hello. What do you want? Get out of here. So, let's see here. All right. So... Waffles has been back for over a year. Mom's over cancer. Hey, congratulations. Now I got to foster the puppy. That's fucking wonderful. That's so wonderful to hear. So again, these early types of games were made where you'd use the arrow keys to move around, but then you would like type commands in a command prompt to move. And again, this is 84, this game was made. And so people were trying to develop more sophisticated ways to actually navigate. So this is King's Quest V, where, like, you actually start to have much higher graphical fidelity. You were starting to be able to get to 16 colors, 32 colors, not 16-bit, by the way, like literally 16. You started to have these much more elaborate areas to wander around, and you started to create these common icons. You can see this little eye. You could turn your mouse cursor to look, or turn your mouse cursor to walk, or to use, or to interact with. So you see, like, on show me stuff. Are we looping? There started to be consistency of, like, verbs to be able to interact with stuff. And this was, like, again, this is why Roberta Williams is, like, such a fucking baller, right? Not only was she responsible for creating tons of these games, but was also figuring out a lot of stuff that we take for granted now. How do you go from the player is able to type any verb down to an extremely limited set of verbs, like look, use, walk to, that we as gamers today think nothing of. Yeah, that's the way the game works. There's 5 mechanics, and the game's deep enough. You know, like Rocket League has very few mechanics. It's like drive, brake, turn, dodge roll, rotate car, and use boost. Boom, there you go. Figuring all this shit out, but at the same time, remember that for every amount of progress that's fucking made, that where we go, this is the good version of that old version. There's also someone looking at the old version and going, I have an idea, and it's trash. So Eric the Unready took this idea of, again, extending the notion of, well, if people can type anything, how do they know what they can and can't do? Later King's Quest games went down the highly limited set of buttons. Eric the Unready produced a list of every possible parsable verb, every possible parsable noun, and you would be able to select and determine and figure out how to do all this shit. And you had this like small graphical representation of where you were standing at the time with this fucking crazy like text being written out. So you'd be like, burn door, examine door, get door, give farmer, look helmet. And you can actually like make compound sentences. I mean, literally playing this game was like a fucking fever dream. It was like if someone went, no, Excel's a game. Excel is a type of game. So it's good shit. So yeah, anytime I see the King's Quest games, I'm just like, fuck yeah, Roberta Williams, man. One of the, like, dude, I went to this, there's a museum in Oakland called MADE, the Museum of Arts and Digital Entertainment, where they just have tons of computer games, Game Boy games, Xbox original games, Sega Saturn games. They just have like a huge library of stuff where you're allowed to take the games and play them at the museum. And they have these little miniature exhibits set up. There's a lot of really great stuff there from Roberta Williams. So, KKND and KKND 2. Fucking holy shit. Like, this was an early RTS that was made, I believe it was an Australian company that made this. This game was fucking awesome. Let's see if we can...
It's time for a real mission. Currently, the surface is owned by mutants. Over the next few months, we're going to reclaim
it. Fuck yeah, man. Oh my god, do you remember when games had full live actors in it? So, it's a post-apocalyptic thing where you're either one of the people that hid in the underground bunker, which meant that you were safe from the nuclear devastation, or you were the evolved that stayed above ground. And it was an absolutely busted game. So first of all, there's one resource. So, one of the... Save Hard says, is it not Command and Conquer? Correct. It is not. It is not. So, I mean, it actually had some pretty sweet mechanics. Let's get this. Let me mute this. All right, Commander.
It's owned by mutants. Over the next few months.
This is too good. This is too fucking good. So, this is... Get out of here. What's funny about this game is, like, again... RTS games were another one of the really early, like, holy shit, we gotta make our own RTS game. Like, when I was in the, like, from 95 to, actually earlier than that, probably like 93 to 98, during that range, there were tons of RTS games getting produced. Like, so fucking many games that were RTSs getting produced. And no one really knew general principles. Like, okay, I want you to play a game with me. Okay, play a game with me. Close your eyes, and I want you to imagine you are playing a modern first-person shooter. It's set in the near future, say 2050. And imagine that you are looking at an area where there's going to be a battle. Okay? Remember, there's going to be a battle somewhere in an area, but you're walking to that area. Just close your eyes. Because I've given you the setting and the tone, you immediately know, yeah, there's probably ammo, like probably up here, or maybe down here. The gun is coming out of this fucking place. You know that everything has really clean lines. You know that on the reticle, there's probably a different set of information above the reticle. You might have a small radar map in the corner. When you take damage, you know it's going to be sort of red blood on the screen that's going to kind of creep in. You know that you're probably going to have some cybernetic AI assistant that basically gives you tutorial things. Our health is low, Commander. Find stim packs immediately. You know that sort of shit's going to happen, right? Like, that's how it looks. Those modern design heuristics have been kind of figured out. They're satisfying. They're understandable, you know? During the early RTS days, like nowadays when you think RTS, you think about stuff being on the bottom, down here, right? You have the idea of UI elements in this general area, and maybe some resource readings in the top, but normally it's focused on widescreen, all this sort of shit. This is how Age of Empires 4 looks. This is how StarCraft 2 looks. This is how tons of these kinds of games look. But like during this early era, no one had a clue about any fucking principles in RTS like at all. So in this game, you have just this long scrolling panel that you can click on to place things down. Your units had levels, so you can see all of these have the white border. So these are all like level 1 things. So there, look, you're building some shit. You have the mobile construction vehicle, literally taken directly from Command & Conquer. Oh, there's the leader of the Evolved with some... Here's some colorful characters. Mission complete. Crush, kill, and destroy. That's what KKND stands for. It's fucking so sick. And also, this game was like not 16 by 9. This is like 4 by 3. This is like 4 by 3 as fuck. But you see how these guys have a blue border? Yeah, they've leveled up. And so you'd have these like ability to level up your guys. He has red, he's full level. Leveling things up were disgustingly powerful. Oh, fuck, it was so strong. And again, there was one resource, too. It was just oil. All you needed was oil, my dudes. And so, you know, if you know anything about RTS games, you know the more the merrier. So, I mean, you would just, like, start off and, like, take a bunch of oil and just crush shit, right? It had some destructible terrain. It's the only RTS that I've ever seen that regularly made use of bridges. Regularly made use of bridges. Which is like fucking like crazy obnoxious tech for modern pathfinding. Like really obnoxious. But dude, like and it was funny because it had a number of... Okay, so RTS games, I would say, are like 50% UI UX. There's tons of little fiddly bits that if they're not composed correctly, fuck the game. So for instance, one is when you click on an enemy unit to attack it, what happens? Here's a very easy mistake to include. When you target the unit, fire at it, wait until your cooldown's down, fire again, and then if you change targets, you just kind of stop that loop, right? Makes sense? Makes sense? Okay. If that's the way your logic worked, you would be able to target this unit, fire, turn to this unit, new unit, the first instruction is fire, switch back to the original unit, fire again, you have infinite attack speed. You're constrained only by the ability to rotate. So I remember in this game there were these beetles that would just shoot an area spread of acid. Because remember, there's the survivors that have like your sort of cool mechanical stuff, but the evolved have like elephants with turrets on the back. Look, there's a giant scorpion. Can you see it? Here's a guy that's riding on the back of like a lizard dog. Okay, and there was just like fucking giant beetles. Are they gonna show my beetles? Where are my beetles at? KKND. Nope, no beetles for you. Too bad. They just have beetles, and they'd be like, you just be like wobbling between the two. This game was fucking incredible, man. I loved KKND. I actually played this like not that long ago. It might still be installed on my computer. KKND 2 Crossfire, also with a K. It's so fucking tough, man. And this was funny because they went for the third faction, and I actually think KKND 2 didn't come out. KKND 2 it didn't come out that long after Brood War did. Yeah, late 98 and early 99. So, I mean, I like shout out to the art directors in StarCraft 1. Like, I mean, when you look at these images, like God, this actually fucking looks like Heroes of Might and Magic 3 a little bit, doesn't it? Oh my god. Yeah, so you still had these. Okay, there were three factions in KKND 2, right? You still had the survivors that lived in the underground bunkers during the fucking explosions, and then you had the evolved, which you're looking at, right? These people that stayed on top. The third were, I believe, agricultural equipment that became self-aware and switched all their agricultural capabilities to military. Those are your three factions. I don't fucking understand in the slightest why that's the third one. And that's the best part about games that were released in like the late 90s. Actually, just any time in the 90s. Because you get funding and they'd go like, all right, we're going to just give you $10 million. And look, in a year, we expect the whole game. And you just like do that Indiana Jones swap. There's no oversight. There's no fucking funding person. Like, I don't know if agricultural equipment is resonant with the average consumer, especially given that we're targeting children. But like this is like totally sick. And I remember playing this, and this one had a really interesting thing that I haven't seen in a lot of games, frankly, for balance reasons. If you kill a flying unit, it crashes, and when it crashes, it deals damage. And that was so cool, because you'd be, like, shooting at flyers, and then they'd start to play the crashing animation, and then you're like, ah! You fucking run out of the way, man. Balanced? No. Design-wise? Fuck yeah. This is the shit right here. I love GOG. GOG is the best. So yeah, these games have a real special place in my heart, because I pretty much only played StarCraft from 1998 to 2013. That's the only thing that I did, was play that fucking game. Even though now you might view me as like a true gamer. Back then I was just only a StarCraft player. But before that, that's the games that we're looking at. And this is when I was an RTS player. Because KKND came out before Brood War, before StarCraft Brood War. And it had like fucking music, man. Oh my god, the tracks. Survivor Track 2. Bros and brodettes is the one. Really love these games. You know, it's funny because we're going through these. I'll revisit these top end ones in a little bit. I love fucking nostalgia tripping. I don't know what Lure of the Temptress is. I have no idea, but dude, Myst is like one of the most important games of all time. I mean, Myst was just fucking beautiful. This game was started in 91 by Cyan Worlds, released in 93. This was, again, there's a lot of issues that were facing game development in the late 80s, early 90s. Just a shitload of issues. Notably, 3D rendering was like not really a thing because it was too difficult to do in real time. And by this I mean, okay, if you are rendering at, let's just say 10 frames a second. Well, that means that you need every single thing to be finished, all the computation in 100 milliseconds, right? And that's what it means to be doing 10 frames a second. With 10 frames a second, you need everything to get done within 100 milliseconds. And so a lot of 3D rendering, like what you'd see like right here on this screen, or the unbelievable and amazing cinematic masterpiece Beyond the Mind's Eye, directed by Jan Hammer. Fucking those frames would often take several seconds per frame. So this is why you would see early 3D animation, like, Toy Story. We could get high fidelity, high frame rate animation, but they would spend several hours per frame, right? So Myst, Cyan Worlds had already been doing really interesting things with slide card technology. Or I can't remember what it's called, HyperCard. So back up a little bit. As I was saying a while ago, the way that modern, or the early computing worked was it was like for business and business needs and business presentations. So there's this, you guys know how MS Paint works, right? Or not MS Paint. Listen, I fucking know how MS Paint works. You wish you knew MS Paint like me, you fucking absolute Luddite. No, you guys know how PowerPoint works, right? So here's slide 1, and then you hit the next button, and you go to slide 2, and then so on and so forth to like slide 3 and shit like this. There was this technology called HyperCard, which is kind of an early precursor to the notion of modern UI. Like if I hit this file button, it drops stuff down. If I, like click on this size thing, it'll show me this shit. But if we're looking at the way that these sort of modern Windows equivalents worked, you would click to here, and this would take you to like slide 2, but if you clicked here, this would take you to slide 3. Right? So it's kind of like, again, it's this idea of like, it's called HyperCard because you used physical cards to actually like, in a lot of early computation, honestly. Let me move something around real quick. It's so good. Okay. So I'm just moving some windows around, seeing if I have it. Did I get this game here? What was it called? I must have that on Steam. Sorry, give me a minute. There we go. No. Cosmic Osmo. There it is. Okay. So a lot of the early stuff that was done by the developers of Cyan Worlds was in these types of hypercards. So the idea is that you would be on this screen, and if you clicked on this exit, it would bring you to this area. So this is a way to kind of avoid doing real-time rendering of images. You have the image saved, and you're just loading that one fixed image. And when you like click on this and move over to here, it kind of gives you the impression that you're traversing in space, right? So I want to stress that this is, get out of here. This is different from the way that something like a King's Quest 2 worked, or King's Quest 1 worked, where you'd actually be, you, the character, you could hold up, down, left, right, and you'd be physically navigating in space, right? So again, the difference from click to move the camera, and then WASD to like walk the character around. You still had the notion of like screens and stuff. But Myst did something that was super fucking clever, because again, it was rooted in these really early sort of HyperCard games that Cyan Worlds had made, where they were interested, one, in trying to create an actual proper world, where there's a world that has a story and characters and events that are occurring, and you, the player, are a participant in that. That's one of the reasons why their company was called Cyan Worlds, as opposed to just, Cyan Entertainment Manufacturing. And this is right around the time that CD-ROMs were becoming a technology at all, like very early 90s. And so the really brilliant thing that the developers did is they would create a 3D environment where each of the environments would be rendered out. It would take a few seconds to render that image, or maybe a few hours to render that image, but then you would have the image and you'd save it. And on the CD, it would go from image to image to image, so you'd get these really high fidelity 3D images. And occasionally you'd even get animation and movement. And I mean, like, just the idea of like going to these fucking interesting locations, and a lot of the puzzles were mechanical objects. So it wasn't like, you talk to this person and ask them this or say that. You would actually, see if I can actually get this. You would have to like twist this and hit this button. So it had these like tiny little animations that would play with some of the best sound design in the history of gaming. Interesting story. I think his name is Tim Larkin, I want to say. Tim Larkin did the audio on Myst, did the audio on Riven, and later went to work at Valve doing a lot of the early audio for Dota 2. You know how Dota 2 has that really distinct audio palette to it? Same person. I mean, if you play Riven and Myst, this is the best sound. It's fucking incredible. And if you actually have Steam, you can get Real Myst, which is this game, but it's been updated. Like, I mean, look at this. Imagine in 93 seeing something like this that actually has like depth and that rich aerial diffusion that's going on, and you're like, there's this mystery and like, what happens if you go this way, and all this sort of thing. Like, imagine this is coming out. This is 93. I want to also see King's Quest Wikipedia. I don't remember the exact dates. Let's go to the King's Quest that was released also in 93. Oh yeah, King's Quest 6. Like, this was so much better graphically than like this. Like, I think many of you know that I love these types of pixel illustrations, like a lot. But they're very clearly paintings that have been rendered into pixels, right? Like this sort of thing. There's the usual sort of faked dimensionality with a flat painting. But then when you get this shit with Myst, I mean, like, oh my god, it's just incredible seeing this kind of stuff. Oh my god, it's like fucking awesome. And the funny thing is, a lot of these old games, when you go back and you play them, you're like, wow, this looks like trash, and it plays like trash. It was novelty. Myst, like Real Myst, which again you can get the modernized version on Steam that has updated graphics and all this stuff, it actually holds up really, 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 really well. Like, the puzzles are very well designed. You don't have an inventory. You just walk up to a puzzle, and then you solve that puzzle by itself, and then you walk away from the puzzle. And you don't need to remember anything. And if you solve it, it like opens up a door and that sort of thing. And there's also all this really great mystery where you like see something up there and what's that? And you go there and you look, oh my god, there's a number there. And it's drawn on the same version as that other number. And you realize these are the numbers that you can use to unlock whatever the fuck. Blue Wall says, did the studio just vanish after Myst? No, they actually made Myst. They then later went on to make Riven, which I believe, do I own on this one? There it is. Riven, which is easily a 10 out of 10. It's a perfect game. It's fucking perfect. They did Myst, then they did Myst 3 and 4 and 5 and Uru. There's Myst 5. Most recently, they released a game called Abduction, which again had some real brilliant parts. There's quite a bit of just like confusion, like what the fuck is going on. We had our criticisms when we played on Mostly Walking, but even so, I was just like, fuck, it's so cool. And they're currently working on another game called Firmament that I backed on Kickstarter like a while ago for like $130 or whatever it was. I mean, they're fucking amazing. So, these games like Myst and Riven are still two of my 10 out of 10. They're masterpieces. They're absolutely masterpieces. So, Myst for a long time was the number one selling game of all time. It was the number one selling game of all time for fucking like an insanely long time. It was like 15 years. I mean, it was ridiculous. I think like maybe The Sims or something overtook it like way later. But I mean, this was good shit. So Normality is one of these sort of fringe graphic adventure games that like, this is again when the first person perspective was really kind of getting figured out. with actual 3D rendering. So this is a room where you can actually like rotate and move around in. And Normality was released during a time when the understanding of how to do controls in 3D was not known. Like, okay, now WASD is how you strafe forward back and your mouse aims. During this era, having a mouse, you might not own a mouse. It was not guaranteed when you got a computer. A lot of people had mice, but it wasn't guaranteed. The mouse was an interface invention. And so, given that there was this period of time where people were going from largely just keyboards as an input device to keyboards and mice, and trying to, and there's a lot of variations of the mice, like the ball that you moved around before this, this shape got actually finalized. So like a lot of these early games had control schemas to allow you to WASD, move around, and then up, down, left, right, change where your cursor was in space. So Normality was one of these really early games, and if you look, it looks kind of like Doom, doesn't it? It looks a little bit like fucking Doom. Oh yeah, Secret Agent M3. I remember the Doom controls where the mouse moved you forward and backwards. Yeah, like because there's an intuition to like wanting to, if you strafe, you move the mouse this way, and if you strafe, and then you can go forward and back, and as fast as you can move the mouse is as fast as your character goes, right? Why wouldn't you want that kind of rich fidelity of motion? Or that's fucking crazy. God, I forgot about that. But Normality was a lot of media was dystopian during this era. Now that I think of it, it's just like fuckloads of dystopian media. So this is about there's this guy and he like totally talks like this, bro, and he's just like a dude who likes to party and have fun. He's like the main character. There it is. Here's the main character. This is you. You got sunglasses. You got like fucking weird spiky red hair. Look at this. Already shaving the sides of the head ahead of their time. It's incredible. So I think it's something like there is evil organization that's like trying to pump some sort of chemical into everyone and make them feel like the world is great and nice, and so trying to pump this stuff in the air to like take over the world, and you're like, whoa, bro, I gotta fucking take care of this shit. This game is really interesting because again, this is like very early on in the life of CD-ROM. I don't remember when this game was released. I think it was later than Myst because there's 3D renderings. It's like 95, 96, something like that. That doesn't matter. But like this game, oh look, yeah, it says 96 right there. Fucking Dana, I'm crushing it. Well, that's actually gonna be really useful for these days, so I don't have to wiki anything. So this game was recorded with different voice tracks for different territories. Because now there's a whole idea of like, we are one united collection of people, and you just, if you have one version here and another version there, people immediately know. And occasionally there's edits that are done for legal reasons. Like, we understand that. Like, if you have any nudity in America, my God, if there's a nipple on there, you get that nipple out of our media. Otherwise, it's rated X, right? Like, there's that type of legal thing. But this game had an entirely different audio for the UK version versus the American version. And one of them is shit voiceover, and the other is really good. And when you get this, it's not the good voice. It's the wrong voiceover. I think. I don't know. I can't remember. But like I had the original CD. Let me see if I can get this. Normality CD. I mean, this I will always remember this. Yeah. Let's see if we can get this up here. Like, of course, it had the really bright psychedelic colors that were common on Nickelodeon and other things in the 90s. But this CD right here, Normality. 2 dots and a flat line. Have a normal day. Dude, that's so good. This is the best CD that has ever fucking been printed, man. This is the absolute best. But see, look, 2 different versions. Oh my God, it's like so good. This game is the best. Oh, this game is the best. All right, hold on. Yeah, interplay. For gamers, by gamers, for gamers, by gamers. So I've always wanted to go back and find the way to fix the audio issues with Normality to capture the same experience I had as a kid. And this is like actually really common for a lot of these like late 80s, early 90s games where there's just different audio tracks floating around and shit. And you're just like, oh, are you playing that version? That's the wrong version. You can't do that. So Police Quest games were actually like really fucking hilarious, man. Like the Police Quest games were trying to, like, if you look at these early ones, it's trying to be all tough. It's trying to be the realistic, gritty side. King's Quest, those are the fucking fantasy fairy tale games. Space Quest is your sci-fi comedy games. But if you're a serious gamer, you play Police Quest. And I mean, you just can't take this shit seriously. Like, look at this. I think that this is like a prostitute. Like, rendered up in pixels. Like, they were pushing the medium. Come on, you know? When was this? 87. And so, like, I can't remember which Police Quest. Maybe it was like Police Quest SWAT? Is this the right one? Is this the one that we played? Oh, no, this is the one that actually has, like, proper acting. Oh, my God, I remember when that was a fucking thing. Yeah, we played one of these Police Quest games on air. And it was, I mean, it was so fucking funny. Oh, that we played Open Season, that's right. I remember this. So, again, it's like a point-and-click adventure game, but there's, like, you know... They have these, like, incredible freeze frames where they just are, like, trying to... Like, you have a conversation with this person, and... This is an old game, so he's just in that pose for the whole fucking conversation, just right at you, with all his fucking junk like right there in your face, and the clipping on the audio because it was like hyper compressed back then. And the funny thing is that I think there's like a disgraced Los Angeles police officer who invented the SWAT program, who participated in, like, some of the creation of these. Oh, it's just incredible. Oh, it's just wonderful. Quest for Glory games. Oh, these were another one. Oh, hey, look, I also have Real Myst on this. Yeah, Real Myst looks really nice. It's just remastered graphics on everything. It's terrific. Oh, it's so good. So these Quest for Glory games, were really interesting because, you know, when we think RPGs, we intuitively know that there's a lot of different kinds of RPGs. But the original RPGs were, frankly, Dungeons and Dragons type games. They were tabletop games that actually had the role-playing component as a core piece. It also had stats, data, numbers, dice rolls, shit like this. And then they also have interesting little puzzles that you're trying to solve. So games like King's Quest were more focused on the roleplay and puzzle solving, and these Quest for Glory games were actually trying to include the stat part of it. In modern, like fully released RPGs, it tends to be really robust combat number data systems. You have a lot of that, and then you take breaks and you go to the story. It's like much more refined. But imagine like what's in a modern Cyberpunk or modern Fallout or something like this. Like these Quest for Glory games were like the really early versions of that shit. Zork, I want to talk about Zork in a little bit. Sam and Max Hit the Road. This is one of the greatest games of all time. This is a 10. This is a 10 out of 10. This game is so funny. Like, this is Sam and this is Max. This is Sam and Max. Freelance police. It's a comic book character duo created by Steve Purcell. And the characters are just unfucking believable. They're so funny, man. Brilliantly written. This was during like the real golden era where like Sierra Online was pumping out tons of these. There's all these random third-party companies that are producing graphic adventure games. But LucasArts was making the GOAT point-and-click adventure games. Full Throttle, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, Day of the Tentacle, and then we got Sam and Max Hit the Road. And there was even a later Sam and Max that was made as one of the very early games at Telltale before The Walking Dead really blew up Telltale's popularity. And that's called Sam and Max Save the World, and we're playing that on every Monday. Space Quest games we already talked about. Skipping over these, because, like, dude, we got to talk about this era. Dude, Theme Hospital. Do you guys remember Theme Hospital? This is still, it holds fucking up, man. It holds up, my friends. My dudes, my bros, my family. Theme Hospital is a game where you literally are managing a hospital. But you're trying to fix fictional syndromes such as invisibility. You see, here's the invisible people with hats and shoes and a cane. This guy with a really big tongue has a disease known as slack tongue. You just have too much tongue. This is someone who believes that they're Elvis. And, like, you can wind up getting overrun with shit where your entire hospital's being overrun by Elvis. Oh, yeah, look at this person has a bloated head. You see it's, like, literally just an enormous head. And they, like, pop it with a pin. It's so good. And it's just a rich management game, right? Where you just have all these different stats of how, like, happy they are. Are they thirsty? Is it too cold? Oh, my God. 2 Point Hospital was much more of the just enjoy the experience of making a hospital. That was made by the same two that developed the original Theme Hospital. It's hilarious. It's really nice. But 2 Point Hospital is really much more about the fun of running one of these things, but much less about the challenge. Theme Hospital is like the challenge. Like, you're constantly fucking up. Constantly. Things are going wrong. You got to restart the missions and shit like this. This game's great. Toonstruck is a adventure game that was lost in time. This was released in 96. So this was coming out kind of as you were starting to see this fall off of a lot of the story-driven, world-driven, puzzle-driven games were drifting away, and more of the action, real-time rendering, real-time gameplay, twitchy, tweaky type things. Like this is Warcraft 2 has already been released. Things like this. Your Dooms, your Quakes, some of these games that really started to define visceral gameplay as opposed to some sort of thoughtful gameplay, where you're trying to think and solve things. So Toonstruck is, again, a complete fever dream game. That actually, the character that you play as is Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd is in the fucking game. He's in the game. He's the character you play. Right? I know. And all of you were just like, how do I get this game? You get it on GOG, right? It was incredible. So, like, as you were playing, like, you know how I was showing in King's Quest how your avatar would move around? Your avatar is literally a rotoscoped Christopher Lloyd. He's right fucking there. And when you click, he walks around, and you click and he like turns and walks the other way. I mean, it's really good. And like any graphic adventure games, it has its own fucking problems. Yeah, I mean, look at this shit. There you are standing, and if you click, you and your compatriot just walk through. Can you please play it? Oaths, we have played through all these games. You can find them on my YouTube. Every single game I've showed you, I have played on air with a few exceptions. This is incredible. I don't even know what is this game? Tyrion 2000! I have no fucking clue what it is. Oh my god. Oh my god, is this the Black Gate? Holy shit. I haven't thought about Ultima 7 in a long time. The games that laid the groundwork for the modern open world RPG, that laid the groundwork for games like Morrowind and Skyrim, were Ultima. Ultima was a game that had this you had this top-down view, but the world was fucking gigantic. It was huge. And this is the 7th one. And I mean, this one was one of those like fucking banger games when it first came out. I was like, holy shit! I mean, look at this, 1992. That's insane. This game comes out in 92, and I mean, it was a game that you could play for like 40 hours. It also had these like very bizarre mechanics where, so first of all the objects that you see on the screen are interactable. The bench you can like pick up and you can destroy, and you can move this candle holder and you can move this book, just like in Skyrim, you know. And like if you steal from someone and they see you, you're in trouble, you know. Yeah, there's like fucking serpents in the water, and you can get a like boat, and there's like party that you can build. Oh, there's the opening scene where, I mean, I don't know if this is like too vulgar to show, but yeah, you are trying to solve an occult murder at the very start, and you're locked in this town. And there's a lot of stuff that is in the game that, again, this is 92, so it's like not that far into the idea of using graphics at all. Like, graphics are fucking new. And so, in the game, you would... Let's see if we can actually see it. Oh, perfect. All right, so here's how your inventory looked. Holy fuck. This is what your fucking inventory was, okay? So you had your usual sort of stat sheet, and again, these types of sheets had existed in tabletop RPGs in the past. You have your helmet and stuff. But your inventory was it was a bag. And the interface for interacting with it was a bag. Okay? They literally made a bag. It's not like the grid in Diablo where like you actually use Tetris type pieces to assemble. Like, think of actually kind of how abstract the notion of each object occupies either 3x2 or maybe a 4x1 or a 2x2, you know, something like this. That's kind of abstract. The early ones were like, we need John, our tools programmer, to help engineer types of bags. We need bags? How else is the character going to hold anything? Like, this is fucking incredible. So, when you wanted to, say, use a key to unlock a door in the modern game, like in the modern day, you walk up to the door and you click on it and it says, used the librarian's key. Right? You would just do that shit. In this game, you literally had to go into your inventory, and you see that little gold there? Let's move the hams out of the way. You drag the hams and the gold to the side until you get the key, and then you'd pull the key fucking out of the bag with your mouse, and you'd insert it into the goddamn door. It was fucking sick! Oh my god, it was so good. And so, like, you know, if you lost the key to your house, for instance, because you, like, accidentally dropped it on the ground, you just didn't have that key anymore. And it would be there if you went back to it. There was also... this game had a magic system that was based on reagents. So I don't know if you know... and if you know about reagent spellcasting in games. Because this is, like, really old school. And again... a lot of the early RPG type stuff was rooted in like storytelling type things. It was like rooted in this idea of, oh yeah, and the witch mixed these ingredients in the cauldron and stirred it and summoned a demon. That's how your spell casting would work. So you would get a spell book, and the spell book would have instructions like to cast a fireball. You need 2 phoenix feathers. You're going to need a pile of sulfur, and you're going to need this special kind of milk or whatever. And so when you look in your spell book, based upon how many of those ingredients you had in your backpack, you'd be like, I can cast 2 fireballs. So like you'd cast a fireball, you'd hit. You cast the second one in Myst, and you'd be like, well, I'm out of reagents. I literally can't cast fireballs at all until I go out and I get more reagents. So like, you know, you get these like weird things where you'd have party members and you'd open up their backpack and like dump different reagents for different things, and you'd have these literal mule characters that were as literal of a mule as you could have as a mule character, where you're just like, okay, you're gonna have all the fireball and combat and you reagents, and you're gonna have all the defensive and healing and post combat stuff. Yeah, so I remember just being pissed off that I just like didn't have the reagents to cast my spells. Fucking sucked, man. It was trash. But this game, the Ultima games, and remember, this is Ultima 7. 7 Ultima. Released in 92. The previous Ultima games were really crushing it. And I actually wonder if I have Lands of Lore here, because that game is like important to me. I should get that shit. This is a modern point-and-click adventure game. So it kind of has that really nice nostalgic look and feel, but it's way good. This character is voiced by Pro ZD, Songwan Cho, I believe is his name. Is that right? Songwan Cho. Yeah, Songwan Cho. Yeah, voices this character. This is this game is one of the greatest games I've ever played. It was actually released in 2018 by Wajidai, who's just a fucking top tier developer. Yeah, in this, you're basically some supernatural detectives, and the game is broken into acts. It's really good. It's just like really, really, really fucking good. You play as a character that like can't quite remember what the fuck is going on. You're trying to like, was that Unavowed? Yeah, no, that was Unavowed. This game is terrific. I recommend everyone plays Unavowed. It was my game of the year 2018. It's fucking incredible. All right. Let's talk about a type of game that is never made anymore: the tactical, mission-based, top-down. It's like an RTS without the base building. It's fucking so good. Anyone ever remember Syndicate? Syndicate was an absolutely astoundingly good game. Let me go back. Can I like reload this? Was there a video here? No. So in Syndicate, you controlled 4 cybernetic warriors. You controlled a powerful corporation, and you were trying to go on missions to take control of territories and increase the profit. So it's actually, I would describe this game as like real-time XCOM. You know, in XCOM, you have your base where you assemble tools and manage resources in the base, and then you go into the mission, and then you play in the mission, and then you come on back out. That's how this game worked. So you had these cybernetic warriors that you would equip with various like legs and arms and cybernetic eyes and stuff, and then you'd equip them with things like, you know, here's a shield, here is a sniper rifle, these are miniguns, which is the only gun that really mattered in the game. This is what's known as a persuasion-tron, which is where you sort of like take control of someone. Is XCOM 2 like that? Yeah. Again, it's like real-time XCOM. XCOM is turn-based combat, but Syndicate was real-time combat. So you'd just be playing, and you'd just be moving around. Oh yeah, and of course, all media back then, like Terminator had just come out and shit. Like this was released in '93. This is another Bullfrog game. Bullfrog did good shit. Bullfrog was Syndicate, Theme Hospital, Dungeon Keeper, Black and White? Did they do Black and White? Populous and Populous 2. No, Lionhead. That's right. I knew that. I knew something wrong about that. Thank you. Yeah, this weapon does in fact look like some sort of not safe for work toy. Yeah, look at that. I mean, I can't unsee it. I'm trying hard to imagine that as a gun, but I recognize that. That is the Gauss gun, which is basically a giant missile launcher. Goodness. But like, you know, like Terminator just come out, so it's like, oh, you have various equipments that look like the exoskeletons. And they actually had like some rudimentary traffic and simulation, and you know, you can like take out civilians. Very, very gruesome. In this game, when you went inside a building, you just saw the outside of the building with an indicator that said that you're inside. You literally couldn't fucking see shit if you were inside of a building. It was incredible. Did they actually have a screenshot of people being in the building? All right. I mean, I just can't believe I'm saying that shit out loud. Yeah, like, for instance, if you had a character and it was going up this ramp and was like here, you just can't see the character. You just fucking can't see it, like, at all. Oh my god. And these missions were actually, like, pretty fucking hard. I don't know who the asshole is that made the gameplay on a 45-degree isometric angle, but then also displayed the map on a head-on 90-degree angle. Like, why does this map... Because if you go diagonally up this way, you will go up this way. Like, come on, give me a break. But dude, I played the shit out of this game. Some of these missions are like really hard because you have 4 agents, but you'll have like enemy syndicates that will have like 20 agents, and they'll just start running at you, And so a really common strategy is you literally just park yourself on one side of the wall, and they will just all move in a line, and you sit here with a flamethrower. You just like... And as a kid, I was just like, yeah, all right, yeah. And so Syndicate was a success. It was just visceral, gritty, 93. And then Syndicate Wars came out, I think, in 95. 96, wow. It's kind of funny because with modern game studios, you tend to think like, yeah, a game takes like 3 years. That's just like a nice, round, normal number. Yeah, it's like 3 years. It'll just take 3 years. And there you go. But back then, it's like, oh, this game came out in 98. When was the sequel? Oh, yeah, it was also 98. Okay. Like, people just pound out a game in like 9 months. So, as Cyborg Agents Battle, Syndicate Wars was the sequel to Syndicate Plus that used full 3D graphics, baby. 1996 fully rendered 3D graphics. Now, all that purple you see, that's the user interface. How does it feel? It feels loud. It feels really, really loud. This game was all about the purple. Remember that interface I just showed you? Guess what? Purple, baby. Purple, purple, purple. It's so purple. Do you like... Let me tell you something. Bleed purple, everyone. Twitch-sponsored gaming. Syndicate Wars. Hell yeah. Oh, yeah. You could get these huge collections of different equipment and again, very, very similar to XCOM, where you had the equipment you'd equip on your guys, and you have this. Yep, again, Terminator had come out in 91, so, or Terminator 2, that is, had come out in 91, so this is fucking, it's pretty sick, right? You know, there it is. But I mean, you just had these ridiculous weapons with the most rudimentary, like, first instances of things like VFX as being a separate thing from 3D rendering. Oh yeah, and you had these cars that could like move around, and it was so moody. A lot of these early works are very if you just look at really popular sci-fi media in the 80s, it's just in games. All the games were Blade Runner-y, and they were Aliens-y, and they were Terminator-y, you know. It's great. It's fucking incredible. Yeah, look at this briefing where you actually had to do something. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. It's called reading. You actually have reading. Like, voiceovers hadn't been invented yet. People were still just reading thoughtfully and going, mm-hmm. You had to read the mission briefing. And if you didn't, you would not know what the fuck you were doing once you were in the game. You would, like, open up the game and be like, there's no flashing arrow. Like, what am I supposed to do? It's incredible. So these games have a real special place in my heart, and there is a game that you can get that is made by the people that worked on the original Syndicate, and I always recommend it, even though there's a lot of people that, like... can I go to the store page for this? Hold on. Satellite Rain. It's a $6 game. Here we go. Yeah, dude, this is the modern version of Syndicate. Like, I don't even care about the gameplay shortcomings of this game in a corporate-controlled future. Like, look how sick this looks. Andrin says the UI is just as rough. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you like synthwave, you're gonna love this shit. Hold on, yeah, like, it's doing some camera pans. This is what the actual gameplay looks like. That's actual gameplay. This zoom in is just being, you know, trying to be all neat and cool. Yeah, so you have, like, different ways to upgrade your characters. Let's actually see if there's some gameplay that we can cut to. And it has, like, some, you know, basic hacking. It's got cool mechs wandering around. But, I mean, like, mainly, I love the world. Like, I think that looks fucking beautiful. The name of this game is Satellite Rain. In a corporate-controlled future. Shit's fucking awesome, man. I love nostalgia tripping. This is all we're going to do today. We're just going to nostalgia trip till I'm blue in the face. There we go. Let's keep looking at games. So, I mean, Return to Zork. I mean, it is... This game is hard to explain. Like, I mean, I don't even fucking know how to begin with you. If you don't even know, this is 93? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, I can't even believe this, man. Okay, so. All right, let me double check something really fast. Let me double check something. Zork is. Yeah, let's see here. I don't know this interface very well, so I don't want to like accidentally show my like credit card information or some shit where I type in 2 and it's like, do you mean the credit card that involves the number 2 and here's the rest of the numbers? And I'm like, no. So the early Zork games were text driven. I'm actually going to click on this to see if. Is this even showing it? How do you go to the store in this? How does this interface even work? Okay, let me go to the store. This interface is weird. It's like really weird. Like searching doesn't necessarily show you. Fuck. So here's why this search is weird, is that you can search your own library, but you can also search like every single game that has ever existed with this name. So like if I go to this page here and I type in Zork, like it's showing all of these, but these are not things that are sellable on GOG. So if I like click on this, it's just some information about this. It's like not the game. Like I don't even know why this is here. But it doesn't matter either way. So let's go back. Yeah, so the early, in the same way that I was talking about the sort of text-driven adventures that Roberta Williams eventually started to play and then inspired her to create the King's Quest games. We have these like fucking... The text-driven games of Zork were literally like you type and then you hit enter, and it just tells you some stuff. And then you read that, and then you type what you want to do next, and it parses it and it responds. It's incredible. So, all the early Zorks were hugely influential. Yeah, like Audrakara says, you were attacked by a grue. Yeah. Like again, the small white house with the small white house out in the woods. Comes straight from Zork. It's like now a really common reference. The grue. What is a grue? A grue is a monster from the dark. Yeah. You are standing in an open field west of a white house with a boarded front door. There is a small mailbox here. It's so good. Yeah, a grue is a monster that exists only in the dark. That no one knows what it looks like because it's always in the dark, which is the perfect monster in a game where there's no graphics. Eaten by a grue. So, Return to Zork took a lot of the elements of the original Zork game and turned into like a Myst-like 3D adventure that came out pretty close to Myst. Now, a lot of you have heard of Myst. A lot of you haven't heard of Return to Zork. And there it is. That's what's going on. And I mean, this game is completely fucking out of control. It is absolutely out of control. So I was telling you that there is this notion of, in games, how do you make a verb for a player? How do you do that? Tabletop games are the perfect example of, well, if you have a dungeon master, the dungeon master processes all the player requests and can dynamically adjust based upon how much of a bunch of fucking idiots you're playing with or not. Roberta Williams, and a lot of the early text-driven adventure games just accounted for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of different use cases. They just accounted for shitloads of use cases, okay? And then the King's Quest game started to narrow down to a tiny set of verbs. But there was some pushback to the idea of narrowing down to a tiny set of verbs because of the fact of, yo, dude, what if I want to do some cool stuff? What if I want to do something interesting and unique that only applies to this item in this situation? So what Return to Zork did is when you would click on something, it would create this grid of animations where there's a plant. So do you put the bonding plant in the inventory? Do you pluck it? Do you look at it? Do you yank it out? And I mean, some of these would have like 16, 20 fucking options. Oh, man, what is this? How can I get some? Give me some options, man. Show me some inventory. I can literally see on the screen when there's an inventory or not. I mean, you just have, like, what is this? Oh, this is so good. This is a guy in a bank who clearly can't help you. Yeah, you would just get these. Let's MS Paint. You get this fucking grid. Like this, that would open up. And sometimes you'd have, like, this many options. And some of them were not only wrong, but would cause you to lose the game, and it wouldn't even tell you. So, like, Return to Zork was one of the last games that I can think of that structured it so that you could actually lose the game early on. And the most famous example of which is this. In the game, at the very start, you're next to a sign of the Valley of Vultures. And there's a plant. And you need to take the plant, carefully scoop it out of the dirt, and then later on put it into a pot so that way it doesn't die. And if it dies at some point, you just can't beat the game. And the game doesn't even tell you. And this is one of the last games of that style. The early graphic adventure games, like if I come back to some of the King's Quest games, there's a really common mechanic, which was your score. So if I come over to, looks like we don't see it in those screens. Is it maybe going to be on King's Quest 6? Looks like they're literally clipping out some of the images. But when you would play these games, you would have like a score that would be up at the top of the screen right up here. And the point of the game was that you played through, and the score let you know if you were doing something right or not. And you would go, maybe I've done it wrong. And you'd restart the entire game and play through it. Famously, in the King's Quest games, when you would die, for instance, if you were like wandering too close to the shore, and then this mermaid just jumps and kills you. Famously, your options were, do you want to load from a save? Do you want to quit the game? Or do you want to restart the entire game? Because that was the model of how you were supposed to go through it. And if you think about it, you might go, why the fuck would a game work like that? Well, what games were popular before there were PCs? Arcade games, where the idea was that you would put the quarter in, you would play until you died. And so it was about the challenge of navigating through that experience. And so, a lot of these early games were rooted in that sort of logic, right? Where it's like, okay, well, we're going to try to progress the story and go through, and you're going to restart and go through it. See, Zero FK Givens' hardcore games, at the time, they were just called games. So fucking good, man. So good, man. Reminiscing is the best, man. I'm getting a kick of nostalgia. So Return to Zork is an absolute fever dream. You should watch our playthrough on Mostly Walking of that. I mean, we were just howling, man. It was so good. So this Seventh Guest is another of the more famous games of the adventure game era because it did something similar to Myst, even though they were released right around the same time. It did something really similar to Myst, which is the idea of when you walk up to a puzzle, the puzzle is self-contained. So in the Seventh Guest, you're in this really spooky environment. Can we do the Seventh Guest play? What does this do? Oh yes, very spooky footage. Night dive. Yeah, it has lots of. Oh yeah, there were all these guests that showed up to a party. You have this very spooky, ghostly type of image. For some reason, there was a lot of grotesque imagery in the early 90s. There was a lot of like horror and darkness. Even like Batman the Animated Series had the blood red sky with all the illustration painted on black. Nickelodeon was all about gross out gack. You had crazy shit like Ren and Stimpy and stuff. Love this. Love all of this. But Seventh Guest was kind of funny because it was another one of these best-selling games. And it would create these brain teaser type puzzles that were like, we have 7 guests, and we need to divide the cake up evenly. So that way each person gets the same slice. So you'd kind of go, oh, how do I give them? I think it was maybe 5. Each person got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Each person got one of these blank ones, 2 skulls, 2 cemeteries. 2 gravestones. And there were other little sort of brain teasery puzzles. I mean, these are like classic brain teaser puzzles. Like you have a spider that you need to traverse this star without ever going over the same place twice. There's like a lot of Knights Moves puzzles, a lot of just brain teasery things. But it was fucking so sick. It was a fun-ass game. This is a game that I still need to play through with the friendos. So this is called Bad Mojo. This is another one of these more obscure ones. This says release date 2004. That sounds wrong. This must have been the Redux, was 2004. But in this game, you're a piece of shit, and you try to steal something for riches. That's you. You're the character. You're a total piece of shit. And you get turned into a cockroach. See if we can get some gameplay. You turn into a cockroach. Can we see the cockroach? Yeah. So this is the gameplay. So you have screens like this, these horrifying, grotesque screens. See that cockroach? That's you. And so Kafka sued for copyright. Yes, inspired by Kafka's Metamorphosis. So you play as a cockroach, and you try to like scurry around and solve little miniature puzzles to become uncockroached. I've always wanted to replay through this because this was a really interesting one where you're a cockroach, so you don't actually have an inventory. And this was actually quite significant because there's a lot of inventory-driven graphic adventure games, at the point in time. Mechanics were still getting figured out. God, I love all these fucking games. I own 69 games. Nice. And of course, Fallout 1 and 2 is some of my favorite games of all time. I want to go play through Bad Mojo. Still love Heroes of Might and Magic 2 more than Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Still do. Still love. I mean, I see this screen, and I remember faking sick to stay home from school. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. What library interface is that? GOG. No, Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Oh, no. Ah. I mean, I've just played the shit out of Heroes 2. Never even played Heroes 3 very much. Certainly played it some, but, it's hard when you have 600 hours minimum. Sure, make the mistake of attacking ghosts with peasants. Man, fuck you, Waffles the dog. And I've also made the anti-mistake of attacking peasants with a necromancer that has expert necromancy. Alright, so, I mean, here's one of the reasons why I think about Heroes of Might and Magic 2 a lot. Heroes of Might and Magic Wikipedia. So, actually, maybe we can look at this here. This was released... Actually, I want to get the exact dates. Huh? Okay. When did this release? Great. Okay. Heroes of Might and Magic 2. Okay, Heroes of Might and Magic 2 was a game where, let me show you the primary component of the game. The primary component of the game of Heroes of Might and Magic 2 is a game where you would have this overworld landscape with things like sulfur on the ground, sulfur mines that would generate once a turn, lumber mines that would generate once a turn, lumber here, crystal, fountains that would restore mana, mysterious treasures, but you also had things like monsters, like these druids, or monsters like these dogs. And what you would do is you would journey around with a hero in this map trying to collect resources. And you can see here's all your resources right here. So one of the things that you would spend those resources on is your castle. Your castle is one of those locations on the screen. We'll look at that in the overworld. But when you click on a castle, you'd go and you could build, like, this tower where you can get access to archmages. You can get other structures that give you access to other units and mage towers that give you access to mage spells. So when I say access to those units, what does that mean? Your hero doesn't just have its own abilities. You actually have a tiny army that it goes along with. So, for instance, this hero has 62 halflings, 16 rocks, 20 iron golems, 12 archmagi, and 7 motherfucking giants, right? And what you would do is when you were in the overworld menu and you move your hero and crashed into one of these enemies, it would zoom you in to a little tiny one-screen tactical battle. Where, yeah, this actually looks really familiar, where you would just, like, roast the enemies and you'd take turns moving things around. And then when you won that battle, your hero would get experience. Let me see if I can actually showcase this. Wow, we're actually not even going to be able to see that shit, huh? Oh yeah, then you'd eventually go into different areas and like attack castles and try to conquer the other castles. So in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, you literally would have multiple heroes moving around, getting into fights like this one on screen. When you'd win, you'd gain experience, and when you got more experience, your hero would level up. And when your hero leveled up, not only would that increase the stats for the battle, but you also had perks that your hero could get. Up to 8 different perks. Things like logistics, which lets you move more per turn. Or necromancy, which lets you raise some dead soldiers back as skeletons. And then also, you had this whole economy that you would be trying to navigate. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different major resources. Spending them and building things up and teching up and all this shit. You had all these different resources on the main overworld map that every time you ended a turn, it would generate that much, and weird little adventure-y things. There were even kind of like puzzly mechanics. Like you could dig for artifacts and shit like this. And Heroes of Might and Magic 2, that I'm showing right now and that I've just gotten done describing, was made in 1 year. Isn't that fucking insane? And there were multiple campaigns. The custom maps weren't even, oh, here's a map you can play. It was a little miniature one-map campaign. Quattrona says 1 year, but they built on top of Heroes of Might and Magic 1, really. Yeah, and Heroes of Might and Magic 1 was made in 1 year. So, you know, let's come here. Heroes of Might. Actually, I don't even need to do that. I can just hit the back button. Look at this. 99. So they did spend a few years after that one. But I mean, like, when I just see the sheer amount of content some of these old games had, I was just like, holy shit. So good. Yeah, it's some of the best games ever made here. This game was insane, too. This is Blade Runner. This is another graphic adventure game. Of course, coming hot off the heels of Blade Runner. That had, this was actually one of the very first games to ever have volumetric lighting. Where they would, because the way that a lot of these old graphic adventure games worked is that this back image would basically be a fixed, non-interactable painting. And then they would have a second layer that was basically like drawing lines here and here. And then they had rules for how it would render within that second layer. But the background was mostly non-interactive. But they really wanted to get this feeling of volume and space. So they had higher renders of the space that you were in. But lighting like this, they actually had computation. So when your character would walk around, it would actually change how the light affected your character. And this is like 97, and this is real-time rendering. Nowadays, that sort of stuff is like quite common, but you know, you'd get into areas like this. Come on, load. You get into areas like this, where based upon how your character was walking through these delineated fog and light zones, it would actually like change the coloration of the pixels. I can't. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think was it an Ars Technica video that did this? Good old Blade Runner. Are there any deals? God, I love just opening up GOG. You just open it up and you're just like, yep. Yep. Dude, here's Might and Magic 3. Still crushes. It still just fucking annihilates, man. What about games for me, huh? Why? Why are you recommending to me any of these? I don't always recommend to me these games. Like, only play point-click adventure games on here.